Okay, thank you everybody for joining us. This last several months have been very interesting. At the beginning of the year, we had planned to start something new for CERT training, which was a progression of training. Typically what happens in a lot of these battalion meetings is you have a basic class or something, the next one will be completely different, and you'll have no real plan behind the training. So what we were trying to do in Central Bureau was to have a beginner level class, an intermediate level class, and then an advanced level class, and finish up that cycle with a drill, a hands-on physical drill. And we actually did this presentation at Battalion 2, the one you're about to see today, but we didn't get a chance to do the advanced level or the drill because that's when the stay-at-home orders were issued and all of our plans were scrapped. The real thought process here is that when you graduate CERT, you need the basic level class, but 4 years into attending meetings, you don't need the basic class again, or maybe you do, that's fine, but you generally want to have more at that point. You want to have the more advanced training classes, the potential leaders who have picked up the basic training and really run with it. They don't need to come to the basic level classes anymore. So that's where we want to grow and have more leadership level classes, more how to run a team, how to build a staging area, the kinds of stuff that we expect them to be able to perform at a more advanced level in their communities. And that's where we're going with this. So this class is an intermediate class. It's going to cover very basic stuff, but add a little bit more to it for the more advanced people. And that's what we're hoping you're going to get out of this, is a new way to do things instead of just following the book, which is great, but at the same time is not exactly the most necessary. And Zuseli, can you monitor the chat? Because once I get into the presentation, I'm not going to be able to see that. So if anybody is bringing up any questions, please let me know. And we'll go ahead and get started. Right now, as of last week, we had a meeting with our CERT commander, Captain Wire Eater, who is a LAFD fire captain. And the LAFD CERT unit is a unit within the fire department, the LAFD fire department. And he is trying to find out from the city and the fire department's policy when we can start getting back to normal. Most of you, if not all of you, know the classes have been suspended. Some of the classes have been suspended mid-class. So we have a lot of people who are taking the training but have not had a chance to complete it. And so there's a great desire to move forward, get the people who have taken the training or started the training completed. And it's probably going to look like, at least for the next few months, some sort of Zoom training. But we eventually want to get people back into a classroom, get into actual hands-on drills again, and we're waiting to see what that's going to look like. But because we do have to follow the fire department's policies, that is going to heavily depend on when the city feels it's ready to allow things to fully open up. So we will provide that information as soon as it becomes known, and we'll go from there. And we will be posting this on Facebook so that if you don't get a chance, you get disconnected, or you want to watch it again, you can find it. It will be up on the various LAFD CERT Facebook groups. All right. Does everybody see the presentation? Zuseli, is it?
Yes.
It's the full presentation? Is Zuseli still there? All right. Okay, so this class is going to be on medical triage as it pertains to what the Community Emergency Response Team teaches. And the new curriculum, let's try that again. The new training manual put out by FEMA, which was actually written by a third-party company, has taken out the training portion of it with the argument that each locale can put their own component in instead of teaching a certain standard. But to my knowledge, there really are only two standards for triage. You have the START method and the STAR method. LA City, County, California, we teach the START method. I don't know what the STAR method is, but it's probably very similar. So unfortunately, if you were to pick up one of the new manuals, it does not actually have anything about triage in it, except that CERT members do triage. They did not consult with us when they put out that new material. So my name is Patrick Botts Forbes. I am a EMT, California EMT. Tom Worth is also on the call with us. He is a nationally registered EMT and works for Homeland Security. I do this for fun. I have never worked in an ambulance or worked in a hospital, but I've taken the EMT training and certification so that I can help better teach and train you guys to be able to perform the skills that we know we're going to need to do during a disaster. So what we're really trying to do in Battalion 2 Central Bureau, and hopefully move it citywide, is start teaching scenario-based training and make the scenarios realistic. So we're going to start off with a scenario. There's been an earthquake, moderate earthquake, probably about a 7.0. It's early morning, and LAFD is already responding to critical emergencies. They're inundated. They are not available. 911 is busy. So you being a CERT member, you've taken the training, you know where your local CERT staging area is, you go there and you meet up with other CERT trained volunteers, your community members, your neighbors, you form a damage assessment team and you start assessing your neighborhood. It's a 3-person team. You have the team leader, the radio operator, and the scribe in the team, and you've been deployed for a little bit. You're on your way back to the staging area, but you're still about half an hour away from the staging area when you suddenly hear the sound of tires screeching and suddenly a loud crash. As your team rushes towards the sound, you find a school bus has actually veered off the street, hopped the curb, crashed into a tree, and rolled over on its side. The back door of the school bus falls open and a teenager falls out. Now we can't show what this would actually look like, but this kind of gives you an idea. You see the school bus on its side, the doors popped open, and imagine a teenager's just rolled out. So what do you do? What we're going to do is, what you're going to find in there or expect to find is a large number of victims. And so what we're going to do is use triage to figure out who is the most critically injured and designate them as needing medical help first. So before you even start, the first question you always have to ask is the scene safe? This is regardless of whatever it is. If you're walking up and someone has waved you down or there's an argument going on, you always need to ask, is the scene safe? Am I in danger by walking into this? And do I know how to get out if things change? So then you're going to ask, what are my priorities? How am I going to do the greatest good for the greatest number of people? And that is the CERT mantra. Following that, who needs to be helped first and who can be saved if we help them right now? Secondarily to that, but just as important, is who can't be saved even if we have all the resources in the world. We don't want to spend time on lost causes is probably a bad way to put it, but someone who is going to die even if we had an ER right there, an operating room or emergency room. If we can't save this person, we don't want to spend an enormous amount of time and resources on this person, even though they're going to die anyway. And that is It's not something we want to say lightly, and it's certainly not something we want to be cavalier about, but it is the reality. If you have 50 victims and the first one you come to is not going to survive, you don't want to spend all your attention on that one person and let the other 50 people who you could save potentially die. Secondarily to that is, do I have the right equipment and resources to safely work on this particular problem? If you're walking up and a building is fully engulfed in flames and you're not a firefighter and you don't have an engine backing you up, you do not have the right equipment, the right resources, or the right training to do anything about that fully engulfed building. If you are walking up and you see someone with a gaping hole in their chest and you are not an ER doctor and you're not in an ER, you do not have the right equipment, the resources, or the training to save this person. So the idea of triage is really figuring out how many victims or survivors do I have and breaking them down into categories. How many immediate, how many delayed, how many walking wounded, and how many deceased do I have? So for that, we're going to use what's called the START triage protocol, or simple triage and rapid treatment. That breaks people up into those 4 categories I mentioned. You have immediate or red tagged people who will die in the next 60 minutes without treatment. You have delayed or yellow tagged people, and these are the people who may die in the next 24 hours without treatment, but are not currently in that 60-minute category, as in they can wait a little bit. And you have the minor or green tagged people, also known as walking wounded. And these are people who were in the incident, but they have no obvious life-threatening injuries. And that part is important, the obvious life-threatening part of that. So they look like they're fine, but they might not be. We can't tell, but at the very least, they're probably not going to die right now. And then the 4th category, and fortunately this is very real, and it is something that we have as community emergency response team members, people who've had medical training to some degree, we need to understand that this is a very real category, and it's a disservice to anybody to skip over this. You will deal with, during a disaster, people who are dead or people who are expectant to die. And again, that goes back to the person with the gaping hole in their chest. If you can see the ground behind them when you're looking at their chest and they're still talking to you, odds are they will not be talking to you for long. So, what makes someone walking wounded? When you get to an incident, a mass victim or casualty incident, the first thing you're going to do after you make sure the scene is safe is you're going to call out and direct people to come to you. The reasoning behind this is a lot of times during a traumatic incident, you're shell-shocked, you don't know what's going on, and you're confused. You were sitting upright, now you're on your back, or you were in a vehicle and suddenly you aren't, and you don't really know why. But someone yells out, if you can hear the sound of my voice, come to me. And I don't want to yell it, but make sure it's loud and clear and you give good direction. You can follow direction and get up and walk towards the sound of that voice. And this is standard protocol. When a firefighter walks into a room or crawls into a room that's filled with smoke, they will call out and yell, if you can hear the sound of my voice, come to me. And that lets the people in the room know someone's there to help and gives them some sort of direction on how to get out of there. So as people start coming towards you, you're going to visually assess them and make sure that they don't actually appear to be severely injured. Just a quick glance over, you're not going to stop each one and do a head to toe on them and check them out. Just quickly glance over, notice, hey, this person has a branch sticking out of their neck and it's bloody. Maybe they're not walking wounded. Maybe they're actually immediate and they need to sit down over there before they collapse. Or you see someone who is pale, sweating, and they're having trouble breathing, yet they're walking towards you. That is not someone who's walking wounded. That is someone who is in immediate distress and they need to sit down before they pass out. So always do that visual inspection. And if you can, get a count. You always want to track how many victims you have, and this is your first count of people that are in the incident who are coming out. Importantly, direct them to go somewhere nearby and stay there. A lot of times when we do these drills and we call out, we don't give them any direction. We tell them, come to us, and then they keep walking out into the street and they get run over or whatever. Have them go sit down over somewhere shady, sit relatively safe away from the incident. So if something goes wrong, they're not more involved in the incident than they needed to be. But I would also say, hey, if I don't have the resources, I don't have enough volunteers with me, it's a 3-person team, I'm not splitting my team up. The first person that looks like they are healthy enough and capable of some sort of leadership, they don't look utterly confused, I would make that person in charge and say, hey, I need you to help me out with this. I need you to keep everybody who's here safe. I need you to take them over there, make sure they don't wander off. And just as importantly, if something goes wrong, they start going downhill, you need to come get us, because we're not going to be over there with you. We're going to be dealing with the people in the bus right now, but they're just as important. And if one of them starts to go downhill, you need to come grab us. Also, you want to keep a few of these people to help you out with the incident. In our scenario, we only have 3 people in the team. So if you can grab a couple relatively healthy people, you're going to need them later, and we'll go into that. So what makes somebody immediate? The human body has systems that work together. You have your pulmonary system, your lungs, your cardiac system, your heart, your neurological system, your skin. All of these systems work together to keep someone alive in an otherwise harsh environment. You take away or damage one of these systems and that person will die. And so it's a careful balance that can very quickly get out of whack during a trauma. And if one of these systems is thrown off, the body will start to try and compensate, but it won't be able to recover, and that person will start to go downhill very quickly. Examples of this: severe blood loss. We're talking hemorrhaging. It's squirting blood, or you see a puddle of blood around this person. They are not okay. They are going to need help. They're going to need immediate help. Or circulation disruption. You have a crushing injury or something that's blocked circulation to a limb. That is going to be an immediate injury, and it's going to cause problems with that person's circulation system. Severe respiratory trauma, a collapsed lung, or an obstructed airway. With that, someone will either die very quickly or they will start to go downhill very quickly. Neurological disruption, brain or spinal cord injury will throw everything off real fast. And our skin protects what's inside our body from what's outside of our body. Severe burns to a large portion of that skin, that body, is going to quickly lead to a medical emergency. And all of these systems, when they get thrown off, lead to what's called shock. It's where the body tries to compensate for this disruption, and it tries to say, pull blood and circulation and warmth away from the extremities and keep it towards your core to keep your vital organs alive as long as possible for medical emergency, medical treatment to get there to you. And there's different kinds of shock, but if someone is showing the signs of shock, that means something is wrong, even if you can't see it. So what makes someone delayed? If they didn't walk out when you called them and you can't identify why they are immediate or dead, they're delayed. It's something has gone wrong. We can't tell what it is, but they don't appear to be dying right now, yet they didn't get up and walk out when you called them. Something is wrong here and they're delayed. We'll get back to them and hopefully treat it before it kills them. That clear to everybody so far? Basic categories. I think pretty much everybody knows what dead is. The expectant part's the difficult one, but I don't think we need to go into that in too great a detail. So what you're doing with triage is really a rapid assessment, and this is something that gets repeated over and over again. You're trying to get an initial picture of what's going on and identify who's going to die in the next 60 seconds. More importantly, who's going to die in the next 60 minutes. The 60-second part is important because you want to perform any necessary life-saving techniques such as opening an airway or stop hemorrhaging. If someone is squirting blood out of their leg, they have 90 seconds to maybe a few minutes before they have so much blood loss that they cannot be saved. So if you can stop that blood loss, you can apply direct pressure on that artery that's squirting blood, or you put a tourniquet on them or something, or have someone else apply direct pressure. That's going to stop that blood loss and allow them to live a little bit longer so you can treat them. If someone is not breathing and you can open up their airway and they start spontaneously breathing again, you just save them from dying. But we also don't want to invest too much time into someone. If someone is not breathing and you open their airway twice and they have no pulse, do not start performing CPR on them. Once you start performing CPR, you're not supposed to stop. So if someone is dead, let them be dead. And that is very cavalier to say, but it is the reality. If you've got 10 victims and the first one you come to is dead, you're going to have to move on to the next one because there's nothing you can do to save that person. And that's important to be able to identify, is who you can save and who you can't. So you want to identify the victims who will die in the next 60 minutes without getting immediate medical attention. And to do that, we have an acronym. It's called 32 can do, and we'll go into that. The 30 is how rapidly are they breathing? Are they breathing too fast or too slow? If they're breathing over 30 times a minute, and think about it, that means they're breathing every 2 seconds. And it's very easy to spot that. You know what normal breathing looks like. You do it all the time. If they haven't just run a marathon, they should not be breathing that fast. Don't count the breaths. If they look like they're breathing too fast, they're over 30. Just go with that. If they look like they're not breathing fast enough, they're gasping for air and very pale, something's wrong, it's an immediate issue. The 2 stands for the person's capillary refill. How long does it take? And we'll get into that in a little bit more detail, but if the capillary refill is over 2 seconds, then that person is in medical distress. And then can do. 32 can do. Can the person follow simple directions?